This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into, so let's just jump right into it. Andre Griffin with the first question here. And Andre, once I get the right overlay up, will say, being truthful every year comes with a twist, good and bad, that we haven't really even accounted for. Something from left field. What do you think could happen that you haven't thought about or analyzed, both good and not so good? That I haven't even analyzed, right? Like there's stuff that I don't anticipate, right? We talked about it potentially being long shots. Haven't analyzed. You know, it is crazy because you're right. Every year, I feel like I go through this team so many times with a fine-tooth comb and something happens and it just slips through, you know? Like, it's kind of fascinating how that happens. Like, I do more off-season stuff than I think anybody else really does on the independent level. I really rack through this team, front, back, and every year there's something because you can't get everything. Let me see. What haven't I thought of could be a problem? Okay. Maybe the thing that could come from left field is, let's say for whatever reason, we're not getting production from Fannin. That tight end room for a team that wants to run and maybe do some play action and maybe have a lot of things that rotate around the tight end. That tight end room's pretty thin. So, it's kind of a similar situation, a linebacker and corner, where it's like we got one or two pieces at the top that we feel really good about. But if that main piece of that room goes out, then what happens? You know what I mean? Obviously, injury can always be a factor. I feel like that's a cheat. But obviously there's some key areas to this team where one or two injuries is going to put us in a much different spot. But if I'm trying to think of something good, well, not so good, there's that. Something good that I haven't really thought of that could happen that would genuinely change the season. Let me think. Let's see. I thought about the run game. I thought about quarterback in a positive light. I thought about offensive line. So I don't think it can be the offense. Defensively, what if like two of those corners behind Denzel and like Tyson Campbell end up being like really good? Because like to their credit, Dom Jones and like with Trey Avery and Mr. Ross out there, Ross dressed for less. They didn't do terrible against Jamar Chase when they played in the last week of the season. So maybe that. But yeah, no matter how much I go through the team, there's going to be something that I don't catch. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of sports talk. Vince says this: if we're rebuilding a team from scratch, how do you draft and add talent? How would the quarterback piece fit into the rebuild? Since it's such a tough position to draft and develop competent play at all. There's two approaches, and the approach you choose is going to be based on your luck, right? If I'm doing a rebuild from scratch, I have the number 1 overall pick, and there's a quarterback available, then it's pretty easy what I'm going to do, right? If Andrew Luck's in the draft, I'm going to draft Andrew Luck, and we're going to figure it out around Andrew Luck as time goes on. If I'm rebuilding a team from scratch and the first pick I have available or the picks I have available to me aren't immediately like go for it quarterback selections, then I'm going to build the rest of the team out. I'm going to start at the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. And then I will build out the rest of the roster where it makes sense. And the reason I start with offensive line and defensive line is I want to put myself in a position that I'm putting that as a foundation, one. But two, I'm going to make it so that I could pay that portion of the team before I have to pay my quarterback. Assuming I get a quarterback later. So there's a number of ways you could do it, but it's really going to be dependent on what you have access to. JG says this, Q, you mentioned during the last QnA that LeBron basically masked the pain of being a Browns fan. I just want to point out that the Cavs title made everybody forget that the Guardians, along with the Warriors, blew a 3-1 lead. It's not that everybody forgot that the Guardians blew that 3-1 lead. It's just that, how do I put this? We were still partying from the Cavs winning that championship. So, like, if the Guardians would have won, it would have been like, oh, it's the best summer ever in Cleveland. But the Guardians not winning didn't really shut down the party. You feel me? That's just what it was like, at least for me. Now, I will also say this. I am not the person to talk about with this because I'm not really somebody who follows Major League Baseball. And it's been like that. I mean, when did the Guardians officially just piss me off, right? Like, I lived through the whole Victor Martinez letting him walk. Then he goes to Detroit with Miggy, and Miggy and Victor just terrorize us for like 5 years. And they weren't even making the playoffs consistently then too. Like, that era of Guardians ball was so brutal because we were just losing prospects, losing good players. Like, when they let Asdrubal Cabrera go, bro, that was like the last straw for me. So yeah, I'm not. If the Guardians would have won, it would have meant a lot to my dad, but it wouldn't have meant much to me. So it was like I was rooting for somebody else to win a championship. You know what I mean? I had already got mines with the Cavs. The Guardians, I don't watch Major League. At that point in my life, I wasn't watching Major League Baseball. And quite frankly, I just haven't really been into Major League Baseball in a long time. So I don't know. I don't really factor that in there. So if you're a Guardians fan, you got to tell me how you feel about that, because my perspective on it would be completely misinformed. Well, not misinformed, but it would be the perspective of a casual. Shade of Red says this, hey Q, what's the most optimistic and pessimistic views on the upcoming offseason? The thing I'm most optimistic about is the young talent. I really believe in this young talent, in the offensive line rebuild. I'm excited about Todd Monken. I'm excited to see what that looks like. So there's where I'm probably the most optimistic. Where I'm most pessimistic is how do we reshape this defense that used to revolve around Miles like the sun with no Miles there? What's going to be the gravity that brings this defense together and makes it make sense? I'm not the most convinced right now that all the pieces are in place to where that rotation goes goes without disruption. That's the better way to say it. All right. The next question and the last one before break isn't really a question, it's a statement. Florio corrected himself and said that he talked to someone and it's really $25+ million from the Watson contract. He said he talked to a position who definitely knew. It was from Pro Football Talk PM today. So basically, it wasn't $88 million, which I thought was like a lot, but I mean, they said they saw it from the NFLPA, so I'm just gonna trust they know what they're doing. But that got disputed. He came out. It's about 1/4 of that. So instead of the $230 million of cap hits, probably going to end up being about 210. Here is the main thing, though, with the Watson contract. The insurance, the way it's structured, it's not going to give you like a giant boom in cap space for 1 year. You know what I mean? It was never made like that, and it's not like that because they don't want to give a competitive advantage out. It was always going to be small amounts of money over long periods of time, no matter how much money it was. But it's more just a nice to have. The real thing to understand is, one, cap space is malleable, and two, the Watson contract, as much as you hear about it, is probably the least impactful thing and damaging thing from a just pure effect standpoint, right? Just on the roster of the whole Watson situation. So I wouldn't worry too much about the contract. But thank you for the update there, because, yeah, that was a little strange that they had to switch that out. We're going to be right back, but I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game's going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 475 yards. Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. All right, the next question is from Zach Schaefer, who says this: what season could the Browns realistically be Super Bowl contenders if the quarterback is in the 2027 class? If the quarterback is in the 2027 class, then they can be contenders depending on how well they hit as soon as possible. I mean, like Jaden Daniels' rookie year, he went to the conference championship. So they could be contenders as soon as they hit. I would say, in order for how Andrew Berry has structured this team to make sense, they need to be contenders by 2028. If that's not there, the plan is messed up. But yeah, I think 2028 is there. We have to be good by then, line. MeWit says this: Head Q, between Sorsby and the loss of Miles, it got me thinking, does a quarterback need to be an orange dot guy, or do you think the team can do well with the quarterback who's just a good player, maybe co-leader of the offense, but not necessarily the face of the franchise, the scale of your leader, like the recent vid went over? I think so. I mean, we've seen this before. Like, Aaron Rodgers is a perfect example. He's not a rah-rah, we're going to get this together kind of guy. Like, Aaron Rodgers is kind of a guy who keeps to himself. And Aaron Rodgers was able to be a fantastic quarterback and win a Super Bowl, right? Usually your quarterback is that kind of a guy, right? Usually that's the case. Your quarterback is that kind of a guy. But it's not always the case that happens. And, if what the quarterback needs to be able to do is just do their job. If there is a void that needs to be filled because somebody needs to be more vocal in leadership, that's ultimately a lot easier to find in a quarterback. You know what I mean? So you can fill those voids. And like, as much as even people talk about Miles not being a vocal leader, did it hurt the defense one bit last year? Like, that's the crazy thing that I keep hearing. It's like, oh, Miles wasn't a vocal leader. Is like, but the defense was awesome last year. And at the end of the day, we saw this defense play way harder once Miles got close to that record because they wanted to get that for him. You know what I mean? Like, they were playing for Miles. And no, he's not a vocal leader, but that's still leadership there. Like, the fact that they carried him off the field like a king tells you about what they think of him. At the end, I know people were overanalyzing whether people said goodbye tweets to Myles Garrett, but like, look at the last literal image of this dude in the Browns uniform and tell me that's not somebody whose teammates respect him. You know what I mean? If we're trying to do the Bo Callahan thing, let's do the Bo Callahan thing, right? But yeah, so even if somebody's not the biggest vocal leader, you can find vocal leader. You can sign a Jarvis Landry to be a vocal leader, right? Like, that's something that you can fill that void with. It's not the most difficult thing in the world. What's difficult is finding somebody who can play quarterback. So, I think that comes first. Can they play the position? If they can play the position, then we'll figure out everything else we need to figure out. Obviously, you don't want to end up with like a Jay Cutler situation, but like even if you do, if you build properly around a Jay Cutler, maybe you can win. You know what I mean? Like Sam Darnold's not a vocal leader. They just won the Super Bowl. So it's definitely possible for sure. And look, when you win in games, everybody a vocal leader. Like, it's also part of it, right? People will emerge when you're winning games. The Browns had great locker room culture when they were winning games in 2023 and 2020. Fang says this, according to recent reports from Mary Kay Cabot, the coaching staff is concerned about Watson being booed in the stadium. Do you think that would be a factor in the quarterback competition, or has this been Shador's job to lose since he showed his competence in OTAs? I would say that it's not anybody's job to lose. It's just a job to get. Now, Mary Kay's report is interesting if it is reported exactly as you said. If the coaching staff is worried about Watson being booed, think about that. Let's read between the lines here a little bit. Why would the coaching staff be worried about Watson being booed? Right? Because like if he got booed a little bit before the game, I don't think they care about that. But what they're worried about is him getting booed during the game. Well, what would have to happen for Watson to get booed for like 4 quarters? The Browns offense would have to stink, and Watson would have to be a significant part of that. So like that report is interesting because like you're not thinking about your quarterback being booed if he's playing awesome. You're only thinking about that if he's not playing well. Like if Watson was killing it, and this report doesn't come out because like if the thought of him getting booed is like, okay, yeah, he might get booed a little bit, but if they're gonna see him play, he's gonna be fine. But like being concerned about the booing to the point where a report comes out, if this is how that report was actually worded, kind of tells you that maybe things aren't going that great for Watson. Jamari says this, why is it our reporters are projecting the worst for Shador in his future when none of us know how well he can play beyond this year and how much he does the stats deceive the eye test? Should the eye test matter over the analytics of football? Thanks, Q. Love the show. We have the information that we have, and we have to make a projection based on the information that we have. Some people are using that information to make the most positive projection they can. Some people are aiming for what they believe to be realistic. And some people are aiming for what they hope is the worst case scenario. That's just the nature of sports talk. It's going to happen no matter who's the player, as long as they're worthy of being talked about. But your question about should the eye test matter over the analytics of football, and the real answer to that is that they both have to help each other. Analytics are important. Numbers are important. Statistics are important. Data is important. When you hear somebody say, I'm anti-analytics, that means they're anti-information. And they're probably going to have a lot of bad takes. You know what I mean? Like, you need to have information. Information is good, but information doesn't play football by itself, right? People play football. So you have to marry the information with the people, right? The eye test does matter. It doesn't overrule numbers, and numbers don't overrule the eye test. You have to take both. And if you're getting horrific results from one thing, but great results from the other thing, then you have to make the assumption that this player, while it is that they have an aesthetically pleasing game, might have some issues with how they work through the game that makes it a little bit more difficult than it appears on the surface to win with that guy. Got to marry the two together, right? Can't just have one piece of the puzzle and think you solved it. And you can't have the other piece of the puzzle by itself and think that you solved it. You got to put the pieces together to know what you're looking at. And that is the answer to that question. It's not an easy answer, right? It's not, well, I test overrule that. No. You got to bring those pieces together, and you have to reckon with both of the things that you're dealing with, right? If it's a contradiction that you're dealing with, you got to reckon with it. You can't ignore it. You can't go, well, I want the eye test to be true, so I'll ignore the data and only focus on the eye test. And vice versa. You can't look at somebody and say, oh, well, I want what the numbers are saying about them to be true, so I'll ignore the eye test. You have to assume that the numbers are saying something for a reason and the eye test is saying something for a reason, and try to figure out what that reason is, because there's probably something there that's giving you those outcomes, positive or negative. So what that means when you're at that crossword, goodness gracious, when you're at that crossroads, is that more information is, well, not more information is needed, but more work. You need to do more work and figure out, really what it is that you're seeing and what you're dealing with and what we're reading. Hope that helps. I want to thank you guys for asking all of these questions. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.